What's up guys, welcome back to the final part of this tutorial series where I show you how to fix your basics. In today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to do your sound effects, and we're also going to upscale our edit so we can maximize the quality of our edit. So in the previous tutorial we already rendered our edit, and if you haven't yet, just do that. Just make sure everything is in full resolution, and then we can make a new project. So go to File, and then New Project. Alright, and here you can make a new composition, and then we're going to call it Upscale, and then the title of your edit. Alright, so for now we're going to keep our normal resolution, so it's 1080 by 1080. Alright, so now we want to start off with the sound effects. So what I usually like to do is start off with the whooshes, which you'll hear what it sounds like in a bit. So you just want to have some sound effects ready, and I'll probably leave these in the description down below, so you can just download them for free. And then you just want to choose one which sounds good, maybe this one, and then you can just drag it in your timeline. Then I usually do the sound effects below my clip, so then we can kind of like position it. So on the very first clip, I already know I want to put something more impactful, so we're not going to put a whoosh here, but then maybe on the second transition, so here, we can just align our sound effect so it matches with the transition. What you can do is double click the L key, and then you'll see like the waveforms, so you kind of know where the loud parts are and the quiet parts. Alright, you can already hear it a little bit. Now what you can also do is just close this and then reopen it, and then you'll see this audio thing here. And now you can also kind of increase the loudness, so like this. Now what you can also do is apply an effect called parametric EQ. And this is basically an effect to take out certain frequencies, for example like the really low frequencies, which is like the base of your sound effect. Or you can also boost them, or if there's like something really high in your sound effect, like a high tone, then you can also take it out or boost it. So as you can see on this default graph, we're now boosting the lows. So what we usually want to do is remove the bass, because it can clash a lot with other sound effects or the song of your edit. So we really want to take out these bassy tones. So the way we're going to do that is, first of all, you got these 3 bands here, so you can enable even more kind of like graphs, but we're only going to use one. Then the frequency is kind of like deciding if you want to take out the lows or the mids or the highs, and that's basically on the left side, here are the lows, then in the middle, here are kind of like your normal tones. For example, like your voice is kind of like in this range, and then here on the right, here are the higher tones. So we want to move it to the left, and then the bandwidth is how big our wave is. So now we can affect even more frequencies, but we want to make it kind of like specific, so something like this. And then you can boost it or cut it. So boosting it will increase that frequency, and cutting will just decrease it. And you don't want to make it too extreme, but something like this will do the job. Alright, and in this case, we might even boost it a little bit, just because there's not much bass in this sound effect anyway, and it doesn't clash with our song, which means it doesn't distort completely, so that is definitely fine to do. Then something useful I like to do is just go to the transition, so that's exactly here. Then go to our sound effect, select it, and then press the asterisk key, which basically creates a marker on the clip. You can also right click and then markers and then add marker. Then what you can do is hold Ctrl+D, and then you can just move this around to the next transition, and then you can just align it with the marker. And as you'll hear, it's just perfectly aligned again. Now I do want to make these sound effects a little bit quieter, because that's also a thing. It's better to keep your sound effects a little more on the quiet side instead of making them really loud, because especially if you're starting out with creating these sound effects, you will make some mistakes that you might not hear, and it's just better to keep it on the low side then. So let's go to audio, and as you can see, I selected both of these sound effects. So if you decrease the audio levels to maybe like 5, it will do that for both of them. Now a thing you can also do with sound effects is slow them down. So for example with the first one, if you right click, time, and then time stretch, you can just set it to something like 120 maybe, and then it will also sound lower and more slowed down, but just keep in mind to realign your marker. And then on the last transition, which actually goes to black, we can add another one, so Ctrl+D, and then speed it up a little bit, so time stretch, and then maybe 90. Now here you can hear a little bit of the distortion, so you gotta try to avoid that, but in this case it's not too bad. But if you were to fix this, you can just go to the boost and cut, and just cut it a little bit. Alright, now we can choose another sound effect, so for example this DS impact. Let's just drag it in our timeline. So the first thing you can do is just make it a little bit louder, so go to audio and then increase the audio levels. Now what you can do is just align it, so let's see where the beginning is, and then let's double click L again to kind of see where the loud part is. Okay, so that's here, and then we want to change the audio levels again, so maybe something like 6, and then let's copy over our parametric EQ, so Ctrl+C and then Ctrl+V. And then here we definitely want to cut out the low end, so you just want to cut it a little bit like this. Alright, and then here I want to slow it down as well, so time stretch and then 130 maybe. Now another effect you can add is reverb. So it's also stock in your After Effects. And then you can just apply it, and this is basically gonna make your sound effect sound like it's in like a big hall, for example, or like a church. So it's just like really echoey and kind of like, yeah, it's reverb. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is set the diffuse to 100, decay to 0, brightness 12, dry out 100, and then wet, you wanna kind of like play around with this one. So the more you increase this wet out, the more it's gonna be reverbed. And then that's most of how you do your sound effects. You can also do this in Premiere Pro or another software, which I've seen people prefer, but I usually do it just in After Effects. And yeah, this is just really it. Like, it's mainly just trying to find a good sound effect, making sure it doesn't clash with your song or any other sound effects with the parametric EQ. And then you can add some fun effects like reverb, or there's also an effect called delay, which kind of like delays your effect. It's also kind of like an echo, but more pronounced. So yeah, now we can move on to the upscaling part. So we're going to end our clip here again with the N key. And now you can see our timeline kind of gets shortened to only this part here. Now we might want to make it just a little bit longer. So we still got the sound effects, as you can see. There's still some audio going on here. But yeah, we don't need to make it too long because here it already ends, as you can see. Then the next thing you can do is press Ctrl plus K. And then here you just want to upscale it. So a thing I usually do is just lock this aspect ratio. And then usually you just gotta search this up. But in this case, if you have like a square edit with 1080 by 1080, you can just change it to 2160. And then you can see it just doubles the size basically. So if you go to your clip and press S, then you can make this one 200. There you can see it fits perfectly. So that's how you know you kind of upscaled it the right way. Now, I'm not too sure, but I think on YouTube, if you have this resolution, it will show up as 4K. But if you have more like a normal edit, for example, which is going to be 1920 by 1080, and you upscale the height by 2160, you can see you almost got these 4K pixels here. And you can also see in the preset, it says 4K. So that's how you upscale a resolution like that. But in this case, we got a square edit, so it's a little bit different. Then before I forget, you also want to change the frame rate to the frame rate you previously worked with. So in your very first project, which was 24. So make sure that one is also set to the right value. And now you can press OK. And here we just want to set the scale back to 100 because we're going to do it a different way. We're going to add an effect called detail preserving upscale. And then you can see the scale, you can change it to 200 here. And then it just does the same thing. But you also have some cool effects like reduce noise, which you can increase a little bit. And then the detail, you might want to set it to 100. And then it just keeps as much detail as possible. Now, as a last thing, what you can do is add another sharpen effect, which we already did in our previous project. So just maybe an extra 50. So it's just a little more sharp like this. All right, and now the only thing left to do is just go to File, then go to Export, and then Add to Render Queue. And you can just set the same settings as in the previous tutorial. So here with the best settings, just choose these things here and then OK. Then here you just want to apply a high preset. So maybe like this one with the 40 megabytes per second, and then choose a location. And then if you press render and it's finished, you'll be left with the final result, which you can post on a social media, for example. Alright, so thank you for watching this entire series. Hopefully you've learned a lot, and if you did, make sure to subscribe. And if you want me to help you even more with After Effects, then make sure to go to the first link in the description down below, because there's like an editing group and I can help you skyrocket your editing skills there. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you in another video. Bye bye.